Hello everyone, this video is about the newly announced 2870 f2 G Master lens that I have right here. I've been using it for a couple of weeks and you can see here it's paired up with the newly announced Sony A1 Mark II. There's a video on my channel about that as well, pretty long, so definitely check that out if you're interested in the camera. But this video is about this lens and I'm gonna tell you all about it. You can see I have my computer right here. I'm gonna show you a bunch of images in Lightroom that I took with this lens. We're gonna check the bokeh, the sharpness, some astrophotography video as well. So let's dive into it. Let's go. But before we start to look at some images, I want to, of course, talk a little bit about the design of this lens, right? So it's a little bit bigger than the usual mid-range lens, obviously, because it's f2 across the entire zoom range. It does extend a little bit. You can see here about 1 centimeter, I would say, on 70 millimeter, about 1 centimeter out, and 28, it's all the way in. Then, well, you know, the design of the lens looks like your usual Sony lens. It has 2 custom buttons on the lens. It has the dedicated AF/MF switch, and there's a new switch, which is the smooth and tight switch for the zoom. Even though it doesn't extend that much, you can set the zoom to tight and very smooth. And then we have the usual clickable aperture ring with the button as well here. Clickable aperture ring, f2 to f22, and the A for setting it in camera. Well, like I said, this lens is a little bit heavier than the usual G Master mid-range and wide-angle lenses because of the f2. However, it's still pretty light for the specification. So this lens is, I think it's about 940 grams. It's just under a kilogram. Well, if you compare that to any other competitors, like for example the Canon has a 2870 f2 as well. That one I think weighs a little bit over 1.4 kilogram, and it feels nice. It feels nice in the hand for me, and definitely not annoying to carry around. So good job, Sony, again, on trying to keep those G Master lenses as light as possible. That's what they always do, and they succeeded again with this lens. One more thing worth mentioning is that this lens has an 86mm filter thread. Now, before we dive in some images, I want to quickly address the zoom range, which is 2870. I heard many people say, like, why it's not 2470? I would love to have a 24, but seriously, if it would be 4 millimeters longer, which of course I can understand is a little bit nicer range, but the lens will be so much more heavy. So I think there has to be compromises for this. Otherwise, the lens might be like half a kilogram heavier immediately. So 2870, I guess we have to live with that. Go back to the kit lens zoom range, which was 2870 as well. Yeah, especially for landscapes, of course, it doesn't matter that much, but I can definitely understand like that this lens could be for event photographers, maybe a wedding is absolutely great. Also for video, it's absolutely amazing to have f2 across the entire zoom range, especially with this camera that has amazing autofocus on the eyes, even for animals. So yeah, the range, we can talk very long about it, but it is what it is. It's 2870. And it's pretty light for its class, so yeah, we have to deal with this. So you have to decide for yourself if this range works for you or not. For me, it's absolutely no problem because most of you know I'm a landscape photographer. And now let's look at some images where I also show how I am using this range and much more. Alright, let's dive into the images. I categorized them on bokeh, some sharpness test, some astro, shot a little bit in the city, and also some video with some portraits, basically. So let's go. Shot a lot of autumn, because it's autumn season here. Went to the forest, mushrooms, all that stuff. So let's start here where you see I focused on this very tiny leaf, and we have this very soft bokeh around it here. Most of the shots are shot at f2 here. You can see the settings here on the top left right here. So yeah, f2, you know, focusing very, very narrow depth of field, obviously at f2 and 50 millimeter here. Very soft bokeh around. And here we have some other beautiful bokeh shots here all the way at 70 millimeter, wide open at f2. With this nice autumn leaves, and as you can see, the focus comes very narrow. Yeah, I'll put the focus right here, and also this one, I think I am about as close as I can get with this lens. The minimum focus distance is not super close, but it's the same across the entire range. If you get close to the minimum focus distance, you get a super clean bokeh here at f2, 60 millimeter. You see very clean background here. And then if we you know, move a little bit further away, still at around in the middle, the 50 millimeter, we see the bokeh again very smooth in the background. It's not a harsh bokeh, it's a very smooth bokeh right here. Moving on to some other mushrooms to show some different focal lengths. So here we are shooting very wide at 28 millimeter at f2, still wide open, and we can see a little bit how those bokeh balls look when we are shooting at 28 millimeter all the way on the wide end. Here at f2, ISO 800, shooting handheld, the shots, and this coral mushroom, I think it looks like it's underwater or something, like a little coral reef, 28 millimeter. Then moving on a little bit closer, we see the bokeh is getting smoother, obviously, using a little bit more zoom here, 42 millimeter f2, moving a little bit closer, the bokeh gets softer, and then this one here at 70 millimeter, which is super creamy and super smooth. And again, you can see the depth of field is very narrow, because I'm quite close to this tiny little mushroom, which is about this big. Not tiny like this, but about this size. Yeah, very nice. So let's continue to show you a little bit more, you know, when there's lots of stuff going on in the background here with this porcelain little shrooms here on the tree. So here I'm shooting again at f2, handheld, getting below those mushrooms here. And you see the background, it's a little bit more busy here, 55 millimeter, so not all the way zoomed in, but still very nice with all these balls here and the red going on. And here 28 again, so wider. I really like this shot actually, it really shows the environment. And again with the bokeh of f2, very smooth backdrop. You can see a little bit more of those reds around. And you can see all the time at f2, it's very sharp here in the center, so no problem using that. 50 millimeter here I am using now no f2 anymore, f4.5. You can see the bokeh balls here. I'm shooting from below to see the patterns in those beautiful mushrooms. Here those bokeh balls still look almost round at f4.5. It's very nice. This one, moving on to the classic mushrooms, the red and the white ones that were near my house. And for these shots, I again shooting them all handheld, a little bit higher ISO, f2, and you see again the beautiful bokeh in the background. And for this, I use the flip screen here, the A1 Mark II, and I'm using it so vertically, putting it just all the way on the ground, and then just looking on the flip screen. It's very handy using it like that, getting extremely low at kind of the eye level of the mushrooms. Yeah. f2, this is also f2, 40 millimeter, and here I saw this mushrooms in between all this vegetation. A little bit more busy bokeh because so much stuff was going on, but still looks clean here at f2. And then a little bit further zoomed in, again at f2. Here were a lot of mushrooms, and I saw this tiny one in between the big ones. And I framed it like that you still see that the big ones are there, but they're very blurry because of the bokeh. This is one of my favorite mushroom shots here in the series, this beautiful bokeh. It almost looks like a macro shot, actually, with all the nice autumn colors, and this little mushroom was on the moss here, focusing not on the edge here, but on the inside that I often do. So you see those little patterns here and all the autumn leaves. I really like the shot. And this one as well. So almost at the end of the range, f2.2. I don't know why I didn't shoot at f2. I think I just misclicked the ring. But anyway, almost wide open, and this super tiny mushrooms. Even my focus was almost, I think it's, I focused on here, on this stem right here, with the beautiful autumn colors. It's super tiny, again, on the forest floor. And here, this autumn leaf, well, I do have to admit that I kind of put it there for this scene. You can see it here in a wider view. So here we see the almost 70 millimeter, and then here we see the 28 millimeter all the way zoomed out from the same spot. And you can see here the bokeh, again, the foreground bokeh, very smooth, and the bokeh balls here at f2, 28 millimeter still look very clean. Yeah, so bokeh, very beautiful on this lens, especially with all those little mushrooms. I'm going to show you a little bit more later still. But now I want to move on to some normal shots, I should say, of the forest. So here we start with some autumn foliage in the forest that we can see everywhere now in the Dutch forest. It's very nice, actually, to find it. And well, here those trees are turning completely yellow here. I was walking around on an estate near my house, and I spotted here this beautiful scene with this little bridge and this tree. It was still dark here, and well, from the tripod, everything here. Later more handheld, but eventually I came to this road. I really liked this road with trees, but then the sun started to peek through, and I was able to test the Sunstar of this lens. So here we have the Sunstar. It looks very normal, I would say, but very clean. So is a perfect Sunstar, actually. If you don't want a distracting element, I often like Sunstars in my shots. So yeah, this Sunstar, for me, it's perfect, actually. Well, moving on to more forest. I shot lots of foggy mornings in the forest here, and then I'm using most of the time f11 here, using a little bit higher ISO. I talk about it on the A1-2 video as well, but always a little bit higher ISO because the leaves are moving, and I try to keep the shutter speed generally a little bit short. Even it's still 1.6 seconds here, that's too long, but it was still dark, and you know, here you see it's much faster already, and I'm using here f5, ISO 200. The aperture doesn't matter that much if there's not much really close to the camera, but usually I'm shooting actually about f8, f9, f11 in the forest from the tripod. Beautiful misty atmosphere, and you can see this bunch of shots kind of displaying the range of this lens, right? So at 2870 for me is absolutely fine in these conditions. When it's super foggy, you don't want the super long lens. However, normally in the forest, at 24-105, for example, I would say is better. And also the 70-200 is absolutely great in the forest, especially if it's not so foggy and you want to focus on details further away in the forest. However, this 2870 in the forest with the f2 is great for those beautiful bokeh shots of mushrooms. Yeah. So continuing here, 33 millimeter, often looking for foregrounds in the forest to give depth to the photos. And here, you know, kind of the first autumn colors in the forest that I am looking for. This little patches of yellow that we start to see more and more now. Actually, when this video is released, all the forest will be for sure yellow in the Netherlands. but I took this shot earlier, obviously. Then moving on, I use a lot of focus stacking, it's called, in the forest, where I, especially with mushrooms, I show the mushrooms in those spooky kind of environment in the forest. And for that, I take multiple shots. This camera, the A1 Mark II, can do that, so focus bracketing in the camera. And I can then get everything in focus from front to back. So basically, I take shots very close to the camera and very far. I let the camera run the focus bracket, and then later I combine them to get a shot that is very sharp. So this is an example of that. You see the mushrooms close here to the camera, and everything is sharp from front to back. And I want to show you kind of how that works. So here, for example, I focus very close. So if I focus a little bit further away, so let me see here. Let me zoom in a little bit more. We can see that we are having the focus here on those mushrooms, and we don't see the settings here. It's a JPEG, but I can tell you it's f14, the aperture here. And yeah, the background is still not in focus. So what it does, the camera makes more focus points, and in the last shots you can see that the background is perfectly in focus and the foreground is not. So the camera took quite some shots here. In general, you need maybe for this kind of scene only 3 or 4 shots, but I just wanted to show you here how that works. This is the final process shot, and this is just a very quick edit for the focus stacking. But I want to show you here the focus breathing, because definitely this lens has some focus breathing. It's not that much, but you can see when I'm moving back and forth through the images, definitely look at the background. It gets a little bit bigger and smaller. That's called focus breathing, because the focus points are changing and there is a little bit focus breathing in this lens, which is kind of normal. Almost all the lenses have it, but the 1635 GM2, for example, almost doesn't have any focus breathing. That's really good. But this one definitely has some. Nothing too extreme, but wanted to mention that. We continue here to some other shots. Here we have beautiful foreground with interesting mushrooms and the backdrop of the forest. Here, similar. So many mushrooms in the forest that I can play with, especially when it's so foggy, is absolutely beautiful. And this one here, I was shooting actually at 65 millimeter, and is a little bit more tricky. You need to take more shots for focus stacking, but the result is very cool. This little group of mushrooms in the dark forest. Yeah, so that's the forest part of this lens. So you can see I used it a lot in the forest. But now let's dive into some city shots and look at some sharpness as well. You know, this lens, it's a G Master lens, so of course I expected it to be sharp, but yeah, there's no real surprises here, I have to say. I just wanted to quickly show it to you. But when we look at this image here in Amsterdam, it's not edited, and you can see here the settings at f2. And if we look here at f2 at all these bricks of the houses, they are actually very sharp. If we move to the corners here, we can still see is even at f2 is sharp. Here, zoom in a little bit more. Maybe not 100% sharp, but definitely sharp. The edges here, yeah, also here. Don't know if we can read that. Actually, yeah, it's not 100% sharp, but f2 wide open at the edge. Yeah, of course you lose a little bit sharpness. This is at 28 millimeter. If we move to f2.8, what do we see here? Yeah, it's similar. It's sharper. Of course, the edges are sharper. You can see already the edges are sharper. And then what we have here, f4. Yeah, now the edges are very sharp here. Of course, yeah, I'm zoomed in really a lot. But yeah, this is pixel peeping. But yeah, no real surprises here. You expect that a G Master lens is sharp. And it is. Also here at 70 millimeter, wide open at f2, actually is very sharp. Maybe even sharper than at 28. But also the edges here, you can see this Fred Thomas guy is very easy to read. The bricks are very sharp all along the edges here in the center, wide open. This is f8. Actually, we don't really need to show that. Of course, we expect that it's sharp and it's super sharp. But yeah, the edges even at f2, 70mm are very sharp. So this shot, for example, in Amersfoort of my hometown, of this ancient gate, is at f2 here, f2 ISO 100, because I wanted the fast shutter speed, because this foam, I didn't really want it to move. So here we have wide open, and I shot it when it was still dark, and absolutely beautiful conditions here at this ancient gate. I have some more shots here of my hometown. I mean, if you visit the Netherlands, definitely come visit my hometown, because you can see it's absolutely beautiful with beautiful autumn colors when I was there. Here, this tree just losing its leaf, and this dove was sitting here at the perfect position. I was shooting at f5.6 here. The tower was a little bit in the fog, but yeah, everything obviously very sharp. But I focused here on the back a little bit and look at the dove. Not 100% in focus. Mistake. However, you know, I like to pixel peep myself a little bit. This could have been slightly better. However, if we look at this shot, actually, I don't know, I need to kind of crop that a little. There it goes. It was just not updated. But yeah, when we look at that here, the dove is perfectly sharp, because here I am using f10, and we have this beautiful birds here flying as well. So maybe this shot with the full reflection is even better. I don't know if I like this one more or this one more. I really like the composition in this shot, actually. But I do like the detail, the birds, and maybe I should just crop this, crop this a little bit in to remove this tower. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think about these two shots, and well, we can discuss. And I kept moving, choosing some interesting perspectives here. f5.6, this is all handheld. Yeah, everything obviously very, very sharp here. No issues there. And then the sun started to come up a little bit higher, and we got this golden light in the street. So here I'm shooting f14. Actually, this shot it's not handheld. Sorry, it's from the tripod. A little bit slower shutter speed. These beautiful streets, medieval streets with the sun peeking through. And also in those streets there were some beautiful autumn colors. So I used the lens again wide open here, focusing on some beautiful leaves here with autumn colors, handheld, shooting handheld. And then eventually coming back to the ancient gate when the sun was up, and this this really painty look when the sun was a little bit higher, casting this very soft light. There's a little bit of fog, and you could see this people. This guy had a selfie stick, GoPro selfie stick, I think. Quite funny, but yeah, beautiful atmosphere here, and beautiful rendering of the lens also with the light, very soft, no flares and all that stuff. Yeah, so a very good performance. Yeah, the lens is sharp, the bokeh is nice. The Sunstar is nice. Actually, if we look at landscapes, cityscapes, and all that stuff, everything is very, very good on this lens. So let's move a little bit to some star shots. Let me show you some star shots, because of course we had the comet that everyone was photographing, and we got to see it also in the Netherlands. Here we have a shot of the comet with the windmill with the crossed wings. I like the crossed wings here. We had some clouds, but you can see the comet very, very nice here. One of the earlier nights that it was visible in the Netherlands. And for this shot, I stacked a bunch of images to get more detail in the comet and in the stars. But I just wanted to show you that, the stars, look at the stars, are very sharp across the entire frame here. So this lens for astrophotography is also good, actually. So let me show you some almost not edited photos, so we can see a little bit better those stars. Here at 46mm, look at the stars in the corner. There is not much aberration going on, and also the sharpness is very good in the corners. This is wide open. At f2, in the center, of course, is super sharp, but in the corners here is also extremely extremely sharp. So yeah, it's just for astrophotography. This lens can also perfectly be used. Here we are at 28 millimeter. The comet is behind the clouds now, but it doesn't matter. We are talking about the stars here and a little bit higher ISO here. And we can see the stars in the corners are still very sharp. Some minor aberrations going on, but we're really starting to pixel peep right here. In the center, the stars are just a pinpoint. But yeah, let me actually just increase the contrast a lot so that we can see it better, especially for YouTube. Some minor aberration, not much chroma, a little bit of aberrations, but yeah, it's really not much. Okay, so definitely for astrophotography, it's good. Here it's almost 70 millimeter. Again, looking at the corners, and we can see again here a little bit of not round stars in the corner, but again, I'm kind of pixel peeping, but you know, I just want to show it to you. But in general, it's very sharp for stars, wide open, all the shots at f2. So definitely, yeah, also good lens for that. So it performs well in all of these aspects. And let me show you some pictures that I took of my little daughter that is now 16 months old. Well, when this video comes out, she's 17 months old actually. Well, here we have, and what I did is I let her walk to me, and well, with the A1 Mark II, the focus, it locked all the time with super fast, locked on the eyes, very good. But yeah, just wanted to show you the bokeh also, because here we are shooting at 70 millimeter f2, and look at the very smooth bokeh. Very smooth bokeh here in the background. Sharpness at f2 on the eyes, very good. But yeah, the bokeh is absolutely beautiful here. Especially for portraits, this lens will also be very, very nice. So I can see that portrait photographers are gonna like this, and also event photographers. For events, this lens is gonna be absolutely great. Also wedding and stuff. Here, see the leaves falling, fast shutter speed, f2, you know, very, very sharp. Here also zoomed in. Yeah, I'm zooming in a lot, but yeah, you get the idea here with the beautiful bokeh as well. And of course, these shots are a little bit edited, so let me show you actually the before here. Yeah, before is here, and then a little bit of editing, adding a little bit of more exposure and some glow, and get these results. But beautiful bokeh of the lens. And it's very funny. She really liked the falling leaves. Very, very cute. Yeah. Well, you get the idea. So very nice, creamy bokeh in the background here. A little bit further away, my wife throwing her in the air here with the autumn colors. Behind, you can see the bokeh. Still soft, obviously not super creamy because we are a little bit further away. But it's still very nice here, yeah. And then the end, this is myself that my wife took of me. Also nice rendering, nice, you know, nice rendering of the light. No flaring going on here. So yeah, all looks very good. I also want to show you a little bit of video where Gaia, my daughter, is just walking towards me. And you can see also the bokeh very smooth in video, and especially with the A1 Mark II, which constantly locks on the eyes during the running. 100p here. You can see, yeah, the bokeh. Just this lens is gonna be absolutely great for videographers. I'm sure of that. I think that this lens is gonna be great for videographers and also event photographers. So we are kind of getting to the end of this video. Of course, you are going to ask me, Albert, are you going to use this lens, and for what are you going to use it? And to be very honest, I really like the lens. It performs well in every aspect in what it does and what it should do. So it's a great performer, and it's going to be absolutely great for the people that can really utilize this lens very well. And again, I think that's going to be event photographers, wedding photographers, and videographers. For landscape and cityscape, I still prefer my 2470 GM2 and my 1635 GM2, mainly because they have great IQ performance and they are very light to put in the bag. And do I really need this lens with, that is heavier and has a f2? No, I don't really need it for my kind of photography. Do I really like the lens? Yes. And also for video, which I'm doing more and more, I do want this lens. But for my landscape photography, obviously, as you can understand, I don't really need it. For my videos, I really want it. Yeah, so it's really up to you to decide if this lens is for you. If you're a videographer or an event photographer, this lens is gonna fit really well in your bag. For purely landscape, I would get something else. For portrait photographers, choice is up to you. I think it's going to be absolutely great for portraits. It depends in what range you are mostly shooting. But yeah, this is my opinion, and I hope it really helps you and helps you decide if this lens is for you or not. Thank you very much for watching this video again. Don't forget to watch the A1 Mark II video, which has many more photos. And I hope to see you on the next video. Bye bye.